Aloha.
Aloha.
This is Clark and Vicki from Hawaii.
This is Clark and Vicki, and we are from here in Kona, Kalua Kona, Hawaii. And this is our first day and our debut of Hawaii Big Island View.
Thank you so much for joining us and watching us.
Thank you. And today we thought we would kind of just tell you what we're about and tell you what we're going to try to do. With our Thursdays weekly, we'll come by different shops, different businesses, different places to go to see in Hawaii, and we'll give you a little bit of our view and also help and plug these different shops and things that are kind of starving right now and need our help and needs everybody's help. So we're going to be going around and helping different different shops and different restaurants, things like that, to help them get back into the swing of things.
And if you plan on visiting Hawaii, we'll try to share every time we go out where the locals eat, where to go if you have food allergies, where to go if you need copies of that favorite picture you just took. We'll try to share all that with you on our adventures around here.
Yeah.
And today we're going to start.
Well, today I thought to really introduce ourselves and to tell you who Clark and Vicki Francois is. I thought we'd let you know a little bit of our background. We came here in Hawaii in 2015, and when I brought my wife here, she was very, very sick. She was exposed to biotoxins, and I brought her in a wheelchair, and I didn't know if she was going to make it or not, but we had a specialist on the island, and we've been here ever since.
And our full story is in our book, if you want to read our full story of
how we got here. It was such a life-changing experience. We did write a book, and it was a bestseller, Amazon.
And today,
but I thought what I'd do is I'd just kind of tell you, because this had happened to us and it was a life-changing experience, that maybe it might help you.
Or someone you
love. Someone you love. Just if you find that this information can be helpful, we'd like for you to share it. So
now I recommend that now would be a wonderful time to subscribe, like, and share as we share this important life-saving information with you. You don't want to miss any, and it's going to be spread over the next 5 or 6 weeks. And so make sure that you don't miss any. Subscribe now. And, the topic we're talking about today, toxic mold, so many people are living in a situation where they're dealing with this and they don't even know it. It's invisible. You don't see it. It's a deadly silent killer when it's inside the walls. Sometimes you can see it when it's outside, but a lot of times you don't. And I have a lot of notes over here because I don't want to miss anything important.
Right.
Yeah.
If you wonder what we're looking at, because there's so much information that's so important, we didn't really want to, to skip a bunch of things. So one of the things we wanted to do is kind of to give you an understanding of what toxic mold is and what biotoxins and these words, and you're thinking, what is this and how does it affect me? But as you know, a lot of people today are allergic to food of all sorts, and these things actually come from biotoxins and things like that. So
we'll get into so many different symptoms. I believe that's coming up in the next Thursday. But today, as Clark was saying, how we know so much about this. It's because
we had to live.
We're survivors. And I'm not only a toxic mold survivor, but I've learned to thrive after this deadly disease. And I'm going to share everything I know with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in chat or email me, because if I don't know, I'll be glad to help you find the answers that you need. And now, most people think that this is a problem that's bigger in wet climates like we live in here in Hawaii.
Right. But there's a problem with, these mold spores, they almost need to dry out, and then they become airborne. And again, they look for moisture, and the best place to find moisture is you breathing that in, and it's a perfect environment. Your lungs are a perfect environment for
Exactly.
this to start to grow and get. You can't. It's very hard to get it out of your system. So
Yeah. And we'll be talking a lot more about that. But
symptoms, yeah. There's a lot of symptoms to these.
But
And we'll talk about that.
But back to the point of where mold grows, it doesn't have to be in a wet climate. It has to be in a wet environment.
Right.
Okay, like Clark was saying, even inside you is a wet environment. So actually, mold is more health dangerous when you live in a drier climate because the spores become airborne. And that's when you can breathe them into this nice, moist environment and they start thriving again.
Now, I'm not talking about, there's there's molds, there's tons of molds, and most of them are harmless. We're only talking about black mold.
And it's called by many different names, and we'll get into some of that too.
And what it looks like, if just to give you an idea, it's black and kind of greenish and kind of hairy looking.
Or
But
greenish, yeah.
those are the kind of molds we're talking about.
And by the way, you cannot bleach mold away. That just takes the color away. The spores are still there, tiny.
They're very, very hard to get
So
rid of.
moving on
Yeah.
to what are some of the symptoms of mold poisoning. Mycotoxicosis is the technical word. I think that's how you pronounce it for mold poisoning.
Yeah.
Can affect the upper respiratory system. And this causes symptoms just like cold or flu, or COVID, and a lot of these mimic. It depends on your system, but a lot of your illnesses can mimic other sicknesses.
Runny nose, runny eyes that don't quit; they just keep running. Then you may have some kind of allergy. Something in your system is out of balance. So,
and
again,
additional symptoms like that, if you have I'm sorry, what I meant to say is you can get additional symptoms if you are, like what he just said, allergic to mold, or they can even be fatal to you. And so if you have allergies or asthma, and I have allergies to mold, and so that's why mine was so much worse. And mold exposure can be harmful to anybody. But did you know that especially so in young children? There was a study in 2012 of 36 different types of mold. And this was done in 289 different homes with 8-month-old babies. All of these homes had 8-month-old babies, and they did the study. And the study found that infants and young children exposed to mold may become more likely to develop asthma later in life. And I'm sure you have so many questions running through your head if you're thinking any of this, but maybe it's questions like, how do you treat toxic mold exposure?
Well, the first thing I would say about is getting yourself out of the environment. That was the first thing the doctor told us. If you can't correct the environment, get out of it, because nothing's going to get better. And then the learning curve there is that everything that's porous, if you find out you really do have a problem with black mold, and you can go to any hardware store and pick up on those little Petri tests, and they can send it back in a couple of weeks, and you'll know for sure what it is.
Right, and all of these topics we're going to get into deeper as the weeks go on. This and so many more. So how do you treat toxic mold exposure? How do you check for toxic black mold? Like he just said, we got that test from Lowe's, and we tested in our attic. Another thing we'll be talking about is how do you manage mold exposure once you have it? And then what is black mold? And you can find out, again, the answers to these and many more in the book, and it's available on Amazon. We're going to go over this slowly over the next several weeks, but if you want the information, it is available. And during the next few weeks, we're going to be going over the most common questions concerning black mold or toxic mold. We won't cover everything, but the most common questions. If you have any, like I said,
you're welcome to to send them in. I don't know what the you've got the channel scheduled out, but yeah, if you feel like you have any of these symptoms, and I recommend get checked out by a doctor. And the doctor you're kind of looking for is somebody who has had experience dealing with Lyme disease.
yes,
Because
they're treated the same.
They're
basically.
pretty much treated the same. It's we're talking about micro. This is different. This is the biology is a little bit deeper. It gets more into the tissue itself rather than.
But they know how
on
to
the
treat
tissue.
you. They've been trained. Regular doctors are not trained to read even the test results. So we'll get into that more later. And so today we're going to cover number one. What exactly is black mold? We've talked a lot about this already, but first let's talk a little bit about one of black mold's main sources, where it comes from. You know, the main source of black mold is from water damaged buildings.
A good point. Now this is
You might ask, what is a water damaged building?
right. And this is when water is sitting someplace, especially in wood, anything absorbent. And I'll give you, if you have wood sitting in water, that it just keeps accumulating, the water becomes super saturated. It can't take any more water. It just starts breaking down. Now, water is a solvent, and it's basically just dissolving your wood. And before it does that, it starts to break it down. It starts to break it into molds.
Now, there are so many ways that buildings can become home to water damage. We're going to talk about a few of those today. So water damage and toxic mix of microbes or fragments of microbes and other harmful chemicals, they all mix with these buildings. And buildings can actually promote the growth of this fungus or bacteria. And microbacteria often is a result of construction defects.
Right. Again, if you have, as you know today in science, we have chemistry and chemicals that insulation and all these new foams and things like this. When they do start to break down, they may have problems. Like again, it's what's behind the wall that's wet and what chemicals that are baked are actually put in that wall with it. So
yeah, and another thing is poor ventilation or HVAC systems, inadequate crawl space or building designs. Do you know that even some of the most common roof designs that are flat are a problem?
the roof starts sagging, the cooling, and then you have
Cool
areas where
and
water
then you get
starts to
leaks.
seep in and crack.
Or even that fake stucco type where they put the caulking around it. If the caulking starts cracking, you get leaks
Right.
there too.
Right. Again, it's just letting, keeping a check, if you have property, just keeping a check of things like that and not let them get carried away, because the
And
longer
another-
you leave it, the worse it gets. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. So,
Yeah, because not correcting water leaks is another, like he said, an invitation to this. And or if you have it fixed, maybe not properly, and then they don't test it after to make sure that you're safe.
I know this because unknowingly, we've had it renovated. We had the property renovated, and we had it done 4 times. And by the 4th time, we realized this is really, really serious. Nobody really takes this really serious
You
until
couldn't see
it
it.
becomes critical.
So you know that Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they're known as OSHA, they tell us that more than 1/4 U.S. buildings are water damaged. That means businesses and homes, schools, libraries, buildings are water
And
damaged.
how well they're maintained, how well they're kept up.
So simply stated, water drives and thrives the growth of mold and bacteria. So it's very important to check around your bathtubs, your sinks, your toilets, your showers, anywhere mold water might accumulate.
Like I say, if you keep up on these things, there won't be a problem. So like if you have a basement or something like that, you make sure that your basement's sealed and that you each season you check it to make sure that you don't have these problems starting to occur.
And remember, this is true even for if you're running humidifiers and stuff in the house. Anything that you're running a filter in, change those filters.
Yeah.
And now a lot of these can be irritating to your skin too. I suffered with horrible skin rashes, and so that's another symptom you want to watch out for.
You know, if you do have allergies or you think you do, you need to, on you changing your filters in the house, you should date them. Make sure you date them and just have them on a regular thing. If you do it monthly, make sure you do it like at the first of the month or each time so that it becomes a habit. And that way you're getting a best chance of not letting these things get carried away.
That's right. You know, and I know that's a lot of information to take in today. And
That's true.
so we're going to stop there with this information, and we're going to continue next week with going into deeper what the symptoms are of mold poisoning, which you need to watch out for you and for other people you love. Again, you don't want to miss any of this, so make sure you're subscribed, like and share, and stay healthy. We're going to be going over, like I said, next week's, and then after that, it'll be the mold poisoning diagnosis. How do you get a diagnosis for that? How's it treated? How can I check for black mold at my home? How do I manage mold? And what's the bottom line?
So just to let you know that we made this so that it would help, and maybe it might help you. We're hoping that it does. If it doesn't help, you know, maybe someone you know. So God bless you and aloha.
Oh, and by the way, I wanted to tell you, just for inquiring minds, today's temperature in Kailua Kona is 73 degrees on January 7th, 2021. Aloha.
Aloha.